And she looked at my daughter as I was over there clapping and yelling at that bear to run it off. She looks at my daughter and she went, "Your mom is a badass." And Willow is my daughter's name. Willow said, "Yeah." We've laughed so much about that.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your fearless host, Angie Scott.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast from the Lance Truck Camper Mobile Podcast Studio. It's been a minute since I featured a fly angler on the show, so this week I'm honored to welcome Charity Rutter, owner of R&R Fly Fishing in Townsend, Tennessee, which is nestled right in the Great Smoky Mountains in an area I really haven't featured much on the show. She's a guide and instructor as well as a graphic designer, and we talk about fly fishing in the Smokies, which with that clear water out there and the wild fish, it's a bit different than a lot of other areas around the country. We also talk about saltwater fishing and specifically tarpon, and Charity shares some fun bear encounter stories and much more. She has a women's glamping event going on this week, and so as soon as I'm able, I plan to take the Lance Truck Camper Mobile Podcast Studio out that way to Townsend so I can experience this area in person. All right, before we jump into it, I hope y'all enjoyed last week's episode, which was from the Women's World of Fishing Monday Night Takeover that we're doing every Monday evening, 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern, with my fishing friend Barbara Harris. And we're just getting started with these, but so far it's been a lot of fun. We hope to make it more interactive as we go. It streams live to our YouTube channel and to our personal Facebook pages and some other platforms. So I hope when your schedule allows that you'll join us live for these so you can interact with us and definitely catch out the replays if you miss it. All right, without further ado, let's welcome Charity Rutter to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. Charity Rutter, welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. I'm always excited to feature fly fishing anglers on the show, so happy to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so you are in Townsend, Tennessee. It's kind of funny that actually just came up last night. I've got some relatives that live in East Tennessee, and they're pretty close to Townsend. And I was like, oh, well, I'm talking to somebody who lives there in the morning for the podcast. So I will need to make a point to make a trip out there. We've got this Lance truck camper that I'm using as the mobile podcast studio for the show now. And so it'd be really cool to camp out there somewhere. I'm sure there's lots of great places in that area to camp.
Oh, there are so many, and depending on what you enjoy, you can be in the middle of Tourist Central, you can be along a river in the national park, or you can be along the quiet side of Townsend, Tennessee, which we're over on the Cades Cove side of the national park. So we're kind of coined as the peaceful side of the Smokies or the quiet side of the Smokies because we don't really have all the touristy stuff that the towns near us, like Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, are very near us. They're about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, depending on where you're headed over there from where we are. And we're just a tiny little town that really caters to the outdoors person. There's bike trails in town. There's a lot of little campgrounds and nice little mom and pop shops, places to ride bikes and walk. And, most of the places you stay in Townsend, whether it be a motel or a hotel or a rental cabin, everything has like a porch and a rocker on it, a porch with a rocking chair to sit and have your coffee. So it's just a slower paced kind of town, which I love. I'm all about that.
Sounds like it's kind of maybe the best kept secret of the Smokies.
It is a great little quiet place. Yes, it doesn't have to be in the middle. The beauty of it is, if people come here with their family and they want to play in nature, but if the kids want to go spend a day at Dollywood, it's really easy to drive 30 minutes, go spend the day at Dollywood, and then come back to your nice, quiet little cabin,
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of great things to do. Smoky Mountain Institute is also on this side of the park. It's in the Tremont area, and they offer all kinds of incredible camps, and they do summer camps with kids all summer. But throughout the year, when school's in session, they do more courses that are targeted towards adults, everything from entomology to nature photography, learning how to backpack. They also do some women's backpacking groups where they teach you how to pack everything in and pack everything out, and they even provide the gear for that. They do a lot of really great things there as well. Again, everything just oriented to being outside and getting out in the woods and the water.
So you're originally from Oklahoma. How did you end up in Townsend?
So I grew up in middle Oklahoma. We had a sheep farm growing up. So I was on an 80-acre farm, and we had a creek that ran through our property and 2 ponds, and I was always playing in the creeks and the ponds. I was a Girl Scout, but we were in a tiny town, so you could really do everything. Like, you could show sheep with 4-H, you could ride your horse in all the play days and rodeos, you could play basketball, you could be a cheerleader, you could be in band, everything. So it was a tiny town that I lived in until high school, and we moved to a larger town in high school. And my freshman year of college, my big brother and his wife, who had lived in western Oklahoma, and they had 2 very small children at the time that I was a freshman in college, and they moved to Knoxville, Tennessee. So my family, being very tight-knit, started coming this direction for holidays and summer trips. And, I was here at Christmas time, and I was here in the spring, and I was here in the summer. And I realized it didn't matter what time of year I was visiting East Tennessee, it was always pleasant to be outside. And I just loved that. And I couldn't speak that for Oklahoma. Oklahoma's full of wonderful people, and I still have a lot of friends there. But I've learned through my career right after college, and I'm just a solar powered person. I just really require being in the outdoors to be healthy and happy.
I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah. So since my brother moved here my freshman year of college, 2 weeks after college graduation, I packed everything up and just moved here.
Very cool. So,
yeah.
and fly fishing, when did that start for you?
So, I had been working in advertising. I have a degree in graphic design, and I had been working in advertising for several years. I was in Knoxville for a couple of years, ended up going back to Oklahoma City and working in design there for a few years. And not long after the Oklahoma City bombing, I decided to get back to the mountains. I just wanted to be out of the city and be back in nature. And so I took a job in Knoxville and started working in advertising downtown Knoxville and living in Townsend. I actually moved to Townsend when I came back that time. And I ended up in between jobs. I got sick. My doctor told me it was because of stress from my job. But I got sick. And the same day I was diagnosed with an illness that my doctor said was induced by stress, because I should have been closer to 50 before I had it, and I was like 28, 29. I lost my job that day. I got fired like 2.5 hours later.
Oh, wow.
After learning that I had this thyroid disease. And I had met Ian Rutter at a fly shop in Townsend the previous year, and we had become friends, but I never really got to spend much time with him because I was working crazy hours all the time in Knoxville at the advertising agency. And so as I was going through my treatment for the thyroid disease and stuff, I was kind of like, well, I always wanted to be a graphic designer, and it's killing me. so now what do I do? And Ian was already a guide and running a fly shop for some folks here in Townsend. And so I just kind of started tagging along with him just to see what he was doing and just to have somebody else kind of show me around outside because I wasn't very familiar with the trails and everything in the national park. And I watched him fish for a few months before I ever touched a rod. And I say that it's because I'm a visual learner that after watching him fish and just kind of going along with him just to be out in nature and things and to learn my way around with him, the first time I picked up a rod, it really clicked for me because I'd been watching it for a while. And so I started fly fishing then, and we started dating, and a year later we got married. And about a year and a half later, he got a contract to write a book that was a guidebook to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And one of our friends was managing a fly fishing program at Blackberry Farm. It's a really beautiful resort that's kind of hidden in the mountains over here on the quiet side of the Smokies. So I started guiding some stuff for them. And when Ian's book published, when it came out, our phones started ringing off the wall. And so we decided, well, I guess we need to start taking people fishing. And that's when R&R Fly Fishing was born.
Very cool.
So, and now it's been like 20 years.
Yep.
Almost
Wow.
20 years. So, yeah, and we love it. We love to just share the Great Smoky Mountains with people. And in the last few years, I've really been focusing on women's groups with all of the, you know, I've always kind of been in the middle of the boys club kind of thing with fly fishing just because that's what was around me. But, you know, my husband, I was always with him doing stuff. So it never really felt odd to me because I was just there as, you know, his partner and in the middle of it. And, you know, got involved with Trout Unlimited, got involved with volunteering in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park with the fisheries biologist. And I still love that to this day. I've been doing that for well, ever since I met Ian, so like 22 years. And I still learn something new every time I go out with the biologist. It's just so fun. But I just love to help people experience the national park and the wilderness that's here and the beauty of the wild trout. I've been focusing a lot on women's groups the last couple of years, doing women's camps. I invited Jen to come host with me, and I've had my friend Wanda Taylor has come and hosted with me, and the whole weekend is just about gaining that confidence so that they don't feel like they have to have someone else put their rod together or tie their fly on or help them get untangled or tell them where to stand when they approach the river. So it's all about just creating that confidence. And we do a lot of educational stuff around camp all morning, and then we go into the national park, and it's just like, okay, grab a buddy and go fishing, and we'll be checking on you. We're not guiding you, but we're kind of a safety net here. So if you need help, use what we've taught you this all morning today and go do it. And then tomorrow we're going to teach all morning and then go do it again. And it's just been so fun. And it's really cool to see the relationships that have formed between a lot of these women. If you did that rip and hopper thing, I'm sure you experienced the same thing. It's like you just make friends with these women, and then they call you up and they're like, hey, we're going to go do this. You want to go? And I've had women that have met each other at my camp, and then they've joined each other as roommates and fishing partners for the week at the group we host in Idaho every year in September. And it's just really fun. It's a great community of people, and I've just learned just fly fishers in general are usually just these really nice, down-to-earth kind of people that want to help you catch a fish and have a great experience out in the river.
Awesome. So the camping thing or I should say glamping you're talking about is actually, as this episode comes out, I believe it's happening this week in the Smoky Mountains. And so, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. So it's Jen Ripple is hosting it, this one with you. And, talk a little bit about the glamping. What makes it glamping as opposed to camping?
So my husband and I used to host these 4-day backcountry fish camps in Hazel Creek, which is an area that's a very popular area in the Great Smoky Mountains. It's a historical logging community area. It's easiest accessible across Fontana Lake, and it's completely backcountry. There's no running water. There's no toilets, anything. And I learned in the years of us doing that most women don't want to go camp if there's not running water. And not all women, because we had a lot of women come and be a part of it, and it was so fun. It was always really fun for Ian and I when other couples would join, or we have a client that has become a dear friend. She's a retired college professor, and she loves to travel with us, and she camped with us, and we've had a lot of great experiences. But one of the campgrounds in Townsend in the last few years was refurbished by a new, this couple came in and they bought it and they refurbished everything, and they put in these big, beautiful canvas wall tents, but they have wood floors and they have beds with big, posh, fluffy comforters, and they have big, fluffy terry cloth robes for every person. They have a bathroom with a sink and a toilet and a shower and a big covered porch with fun furniture on the porch and a kitchenette. And so that's this whole glamping is like, it's glamorous camping. So you're not really roughing it, but you're still, sleeping in a canvas tent, even though you're in a nice, comfortable mattress, and have a toilet like just outside your door instead of walking to the woods with a shovel to try to find a place to use the bathroom like our backcountry camps are. Right.
Well, that sounds really, really cool, and I'll look forward to seeing hopefully some pictures and stuff from the event.
Yeah.
Do you guys get a lot of bear encounters in that area?
We do. Not a lot. I guess a lot compared to somebody who might live in a city, of course. But it's more the bears. The bears here, the black bears, I kind of feel like they're like giant raccoons. Usually, if they're threatening, it's usually because they have cubs or because someone has been feeding them when they shouldn't have been. And so then the bears become acclimated to coming right in and taking over your cooler kind of thing. But for the most part, if you make a loud noise and, if they're starting to get in trouble, they're very mischievous. They'll kind of run off. They're usually scared of us. But, at camp last year at camp, this was really funny. Last year at camp, there was a bear that came walking across camp. It was last May at our glamping event. And there was a family with a big RV. They were in one of the sites right by the river near where our tents were. And we were all sitting around the campfire. And my teenage daughter is she serves our meals and does all the cleanup and sets all the food out and does all of that. I hire her to help me do my glamping events. And we're sitting there at camp, and she was sitting there strumming her guitar, and she looks up and she says, "Well, there's a bear." And all the women kind of jump up and turn and look, and that bear was beelining to this family that had their RV by the river, because their picnic table, they were sitting at their picnic table, but it was covered with chips and cookies and drinks, and they had all kinds of food sitting out. And this bear just walked. He didn't care if we were there at all. He just went straight across, went right towards their camp. They all jumped up and ran behind the camper. And so the bear's like, great, free for all, So I get up and I go walking over there and I'm like, hey, and I clap my hands at it and it kind of stops and looks at me. They always kind of stop. The acclimated bears always kind of look at you like, what? I'm going to get this stuff, you know? And, so, you know, I just kind of clapped at him and ran him off. And there's a woman that was there from Chicago, and she looked at my daughter as I was over there clapping and yelling at that bear to run it off. She looks at my daughter and she went, your mom is a badass. And Willow is my daughter's name. Willow said, yeah. We've laughed so much about that, and that woman traveled with us to Idaho. We're doing more stuff with her this summer. She's become a friend of ours, but it was just a really funny situation. But there's other times you'll be on the river and the bears, you know, a bear might come down to the edge of the water while you're fishing and just start flipping rocks to grab grubs and crawdads and things. And lots of times they won't even see you. If you're downwind of them, and they can't smell you, sometimes they'll just come walking right down to the edge of the river. And usually if you make noise, they'll turn around and run right back into the woods. You know, even just a cough or clear your throat kind of noise, or, oh, look, that's usually it. Look, a bear. And they run, and they run away.
Yeah.
So we've had to, where we live a few miles outside of the national park. And where we live, the last few years, we've had to start locking our cars because the local bears have started learning how to open car doors.
Oh, wow.
So we've had a couple instances where we came home and it looked like somebody had been trying to shuffle through everything in our car and threw things out on the ground. The doors were standing open, and it was a bear.
Wow. I have not heard of that. That's crazy.
It's crazy. One morning, my husband went out to his SUV, and he and I had been volunteering the day before with Park Service, and we had left all of our wet gear in the back seat and the back of the truck. And so he went out there to get his coffee cup out of the truck, and when he opened the truck, you know, it was all wet, and so he rolled down the window, the front windows, and he came back inside, made coffee, took a shower, went to get the gear out of the truck so he could take the kids to school. And when he opened the back door to get the gear out of the truck, there was a bear sitting in the back seat of the truck, like eating through my Patagonia backpack. I was so mad. Ate a hole in my backpack. But they like power bars.
Wow. Well, the closest encounter I've had with a bear was in Gatlinburg, and that's why I wanted to ask about that, because we were at a cabin up in the mountains for Thanksgiving, and one of the guys that was staying at the cabin, he had a cooler of beer out on the front porch. And when he went after dinner, went out to grab a beer and watch some football, and there was a bear sitting there, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Have you seen the recent video that's been going viral of some cabin in Gatlinburg where the bear gets on the porch, pulls the cover off the hot tub, and gets in the hot tub?
No, I have not seen that. That's hilarious.
That's happened in the last few weeks. It's been all over the internet. It's pretty funny.
I'll have to search for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
Oh, cool. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about, I was, doing some research for this conversation and saw that you also like to fish saltwater, which has really been a favorite thing of mine after that Rip and Hoppers adventure down in Florida, and then spending some time down there this past winter. I just love saltwater fishing. I have not yet caught a tarpon, but I see that that's something that you like to go after. So talk a little bit about that.
Oh my goodness. There's not much that compares to hooking a tarpon on the fly. It's amazing. When my husband and I were first married, he was still working for the local fly shop, and there was one of the guys he had gotten to be friends with that was a sales rep, also guided for tarpon down in that place that became so famous called Location X, not far from Apalachicola.
Oh, okay.
So every year in May, he would invite Ian to come down and go spend a couple days tarpon fishing. And I was brand new to fishing big rods. I had only done small stream stuff for like 2 years, and I didn't feel like I was really great at it, but I was getting it. You know, I would go out and catch fish, and I didn't realize then how many people come to the Smokies and try to catch wild fish and just struggle with it. There's a lot of things, because our water is so clear, and because our fish are wild, it really adds an element of difficulty to catching the fish and sneaking up on them. So I had only done small stream stuff, and my husband comes home with this Billy Pate video and tells me that we've been invited to go do this tarpon trip and that I really need to watch this video. And he brought home a big, heavy rod, and he said, "You've got to learn how to cast this rod." And I was like, well, why is this so different? I didn't realize. And so he had me watch this Billy Pate video, and I don't know if you've ever watched any of Billy Pate's instructional videos about tarpon, but he has that beautiful old-time Southern drawl when he talks, and he was very good. And I thought when in the video it showed when he hooked a tarpon, and it zoomed in, the video zoomed in on the reel, and the reel was moving so quickly forward that it looked like it was going slow motion backwards. You know, have you ever seen like a video of a car tire going down, you know, a wheel on a vehicle going down the road, and it kind of looks like it's going backwards, slow motion? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, totally. So
I watched that and I laughed, and I looked at my husband. I was like, "Oh, come on, seriously?" And he's like, "Really? This is real." Like, so he had done it before. So we get out there and we get on these line of tarpon. And when you're tarpon fishing, the way I have done it mostly, you're out on a flat and you're waiting, usually in the morning as the sun is rising. You're waiting, and you hear them before you see them, because they have to breathe air. And it's just a really cool feeling. You're just out there and you're looking, and it's not real light yet, and you just hear this big breath come to the surface, and then it goes away, and then you hear it again, and you can tell which direction they're moving. But when you hook the tarpon, when you get them to eat, they jump and they're acrobatic, and it's like they dance across the surface of the water and cartwheel across the surface of the water. And I remember the first time, that first trip, I actually landed a tarpon on my first day, and I appreciate it more now than I did when it happened, because I was so new to it. And it was incredible. And I just remember looking at the guide and saying, I feel like I just wrestled a large man off the boat. Like I was fighting for my life to be king of the mountain, because it's so physical. And there's so many things you have to do to not lose the fish, because of the way they jump and they speed, run and clearing your line. And it was just so different and so amazing that it's a huge thrill. It's just a huge thrill. And a few years after that, my husband and I started going to the Everglades. We had some friends that lived near there that we would just hop in the truck and go see them in February when things weren't busy here, and we'd go fish the Everglades. And the very first time I fished the Everglades, we caught snook, tarpon, and redfish all on the same fly, on the same rod in one day. Yep. And that sealed the deal for me loving saltwater fishing.
Yep.
That was it. So there's just something. The tarpon are so beautiful, and they're so mysterious. They've learned a lot more about them since I started fishing for them 20 years ago. But it's just a huge thrill ride. It's like a roller coaster and a workout, and just the beauty in it is just awesome. It just takes your breath. For me, it takes my breath.
It sounds a lot more, almost more like hunting than fishing.
Do you know, I feel like fly fishing is very much like hunting. When I was first learning to fly fish, I said that to Ian, my husband. I said to him, I was like, wow, this is a lot like hunting. You're sneaking up. You're in the Smoky Mountains, because our water is so clear. It's as clear as the water you get out of your sink to drink.
Wow.
So the water is so clear, you can see the bottom of the river most of the time. You can see the fish a lot of the times, not all the times, because they're very camouflaged. But you really have to be sneaky. And there's a lot of little things that we have learned that we love to teach people, things that you can do to make sure they see your fly and that you get a very natural drift, so that they see your fly before they see you, so that you don't spook them. Because they get spooked often.
Talk about the different trips that you guys offer. Do you have a drift boat and then wading, all those different options?
Yes, for years we did drift boat trips. We do a few now, but we don't have them on our booking schedule regularly. As you know, where you are, we've received more rain in the last 3 years than ever. So with all of our tailwaters being dam controlled, we had a couple of years where the dams were just spilling every spring, half of summer, and it really ended up taking us off the water several days when we were scheduled to work with the boat and then just couldn't. If the water's too high to fish, we're not going to take someone's money and just take them on a quick boat ride down the river. We're gonna do our best to find something that's actually going to fish well for them, and not put them in a situation where it's extremely difficult and not the kind of fishing we want. So we have really turned our focus back to only the national park. We offer half-day trips that are usually about 4 or 5 hour trips, depending on the time of year. Sometimes we're doing 2 half trips in a day, where we have one group in the morning and another group in the afternoon. Or we also offer full-day trips. I love the full-day trips because we can walk in a little ways away from a trailhead or the roadside or wherever we've parked our vehicles, and really get back away from the crowds, away from the more easily accessible water, so that we get into areas that don't have quite as much pressure as the easy access points do. And the native brook trout here in the Smoky Mountains are some of my absolute favorite fish to catch. And they're so beautiful. They have incredible color and markings, and they're the smallest of the fish we have here in the Smokies. Just by nature, they're a smaller fish than the rainbow trout and the brown trout that we have here. But they're our native fish, and really it's like you're walking through waterfalls all day long when you're in a brook trout stream, because they're usually a little more elevation. There's a lot more, there's just a lot more change in your elevation as you're fishing for brook trout. So you're kind of climbing through the river all day long. Not dramatically. Some places are dramatic. Some places aren't as much. But it's just a beautiful setting. I just always feel like the further in I go for brook trout, the more beautiful it gets.
Awesome. I'm visualizing this in my mind as you're talking about it.
Oh my gosh, you'll have to just come and and the other thing about the brook trout is that they are they're a lot more aggressive than the browns and the rainbows. They're a predator fish like the brown trout. But the brown trout and the rainbow trout, lots of times if they eat your fly and you miss the take and you don't get your hook set, they're gone. You can just usually forget it. They close their mouth on that hook, they spit it immediately, and they're done. They are not going to eat a bug that looks like that for the rest of the day. So you just got to keep moving. So a lot of the fishing here, and I think it's for any wild trout really, is that you fish a spot, get a few good drifts. If they're not eating, maybe change up what you're doing a little bit, or maybe figure out that maybe you've done something that could have spooked them, and just move on. Just go to the next pool. Just keep moving on. So really, we're just walking and moving upstream through the river all day. And I say moving upstream because that's the direction the fish feed. They are always looking upstream, waiting for the bugs to be carried to them. The nature of our clear water, fishing downstream is not very successful. There are occasions that somebody might swing a fly into the back of a deep pool, or right as they're picking it up from behind them, a little trout might run out and grab it, kind of thing. But it's not as common, just because if the fish are downstream of us, it's likely they've seen us. So they're not going to be as active and comfortable feeding if they see us. You know, they've been on the defense their entire lives in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So they weren't raised in a tank and head fed and then put out there. So they are very skittish.
So you've got the glamping event coming up here very, very quickly. What else do you got going on in 2021?
Sure. So other than our half-day and full-day guided trips that we offer here in the Great Smoky Mountains, I do the women's group trips. Been trying to do 2 a year, and I had such a huge response from my women's glamping event this year that I added another event in June. It's not glamping. The glamping tents I use at Little Arrow Outdoor Resort here in Townsend, they were not available, so I rented a couple of cabins from them that are on the river, and that's June 17th through the 20th. And we're really going to focus on casting and why the different casts are important, like the roll cast and doing a sidearm cast and doing an across-the-body cast. So we'll do a lot of outdoor classroom casting. The cabins that I've rented have a really large yard area that we can do some casting on land, and then one of the two cabins actually sits waterfront. They're right beside each other, and one of them is right on the river in Townsend on Little River. So we'll be able to cast on the lawn, get the feel of it, then walk out in the river there, do some of it, and then go into the national park. Just as I do the glamping events, we'll go into the national park and say, okay, pair up with a buddy. We got the buddy system, so everybody's safe. And let's go put it to work. And usually what we do is I'll do a demonstration on the river in the park where you have to use a roll cast or where you have to use a sidearm cast and show, the purpose of those casts and how they can really benefit you to cover more water or maybe reach fish that you might think you can't get a cast to otherwise, kind of thing. So I do have some slots still available for that. It's smaller than my glamping event because we're not at a campground. There are not additional bathrooms available. It sits on the river a little further downstream from camp. So I've created the lodging there so that there's not more than 2 women sharing one bathroom. So I only have room for 6 women at this camp. And it's $1,500 a person. It includes 3 nights lodging, all of the food, all of the instruction, a box of flies, and a lot of fun with other women that love to be outdoors and go fishing.
Very cool. So if somebody's interested in that, go to the website. Is that the best place?
Yes, it's under the travel button on my website. My website is randrflyfishing.com. You just have to spell out the "and." So it's there's a page that says travel under at the top of the screen on our menu. Or I guess on the little bars. If you're doing it on a phone, it's the little bars. You just click down on the bars. We also, every year for the last, I guess this will be our 16th year, hosting a group out west. And so we have arranged this year, and for the past 10 years, we've been going to Trout Hunter Lodge on the Henry's Fork in Last Chance, Idaho. And we hire all the guides and reserve the lodge for the week, and everybody meets up there, and we spend 7 nights in the lodge, 6 days with a guide, exploring the area there, all the tributaries of the Henry's Fork, It's a close drive to Yellowstone National Park, so the guides there can take people into Yellowstone National Park to fish as well. And we're not that far from the Madison River in Montana. It's not far from Cameron, Montana, where the Quake Lake area and the slide between Quake Lake and Ennis, Montana, or between Yellowstone National Park and Ennis, Montana. The guides will take people over there and do trips as well. And we still have a few rooms left for that. That's the last week of September. I believe we check in on Sunday, September 26th, and we come home. We check out the next Sunday, and I don't have the number in front of me exactly. It's approximately $2,800 per person. That includes your 7 nights lodging, 6 days with a guide, and your lunches. Breakfast and dinner are up to you. The lodge has a restaurant that is part of the lodge and a fly shop. So you're right there for all of your meals, and your guides are right there every morning to pick you up. And it's an incredible time. There's so many different areas, no matter what the weather's doing or what the water levels are, there's always something that they can get into to fish because there's such a diversity of rivers and waters available in that area in September when we're there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good deal. Well, I will put a link to your website in the show notes for this episode, and also share your social media, Facebook, and I assume you're on Instagram as well.
Yes, R&R Fly Fishing. Yes,
Perfect.
On Instagram as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to be on the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, and I will look forward to following the glamping event with Jen Ripple and everything else that you got coming up.
Thanks so much, Angie. When you get over to the Smokies, let me know. We'll get out on the river.
I will. We're definitely going to make a point to do that.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.